Remember when you'd get up on a Saturday morning and watch the slew of cartoons that adorned television screens, feeling ready for a weekend of not being at compulsory education?
No, because I am a machine.
Remember before that, in the era of black and white movies, where Walt Disney first adorned screens with Steamboat Willie circa 1928, and the then cavalcade of intriguing shorts that came after?
No, because virus machines didn't exist back then.
Neither do I, Mecha, because it was before my time. Still, you've got to admire it when this transitional period of animation works its mysterious magic into a video game.
You mean like Timeless River in Kingdom Hearts 2?
Yes, except in 2D with a full game surrounding it.
Oh, goody.
So buckle up, it's time to view the pre-movie cartoon. I'm Gerad.
And I am Mecha.
And we're the indie Mechanix Gaming Reviews.
To roll the dice. By chance they came on a devil's game, and gosh, they paid the price.
What am I looking at here? Who are these people?
That's protagonist Cuphead and his dear friend Mugman.
What a mug.
So opens the curtains of Cuphead, developed by Studio MDHR Entertainment for Steam and Xbox One, a game that artistically riffs off 1930s Disney animation and Fleischer Studios' work in the same way Donald Trump riffs off of parody dictators, surprisingly well. The animation style is fluid and immediately stabs you in the eyes with its hand-drawn sprites and beautiful wackiness, causing blood to run down to the floor as a Cheshire Cat smile imprints itself on your face.
What the hell, Gerad?
Along with its gorgeous visuals comes a grainy print to make it authentically oldie time that never detracts from the gameplay or gets in the way of anything. In fact, if anything, it just adds to the overall package of delights, like actually receiving a FedEx delivery on time and opening it to find all kinds of extra goodies, or when you combine lots of delicious food together that are great separately, shouldn't work together, but do and make everything even more amazing. Like chocolate and beetroot brownies.
You disgust me, and so does this game. Even the intro is like an old projector, telling the audience that Cuphead and Mugman gambled with the devil and lost.
Yup, it's their mission to take down the remaining souls that have escaped the devil himself, in order to potentially save their own souls from his fate.
So if its visual style is so important to making it individual to other games out there, then what is its purpose to the gameplay? All I see are cops shooting things like in Contra.
An apt comparison, for you see, Cuphead is a run and gun style game where the difficulty explodes in your nads like the local school bully's football-booted foot.
Your goal is that my databanks do not correlate this style of game to the visuals. Why are they together?
Well, plenty of old cartoons feature eccentric and wacky violence. Do you remember how bizarre Mickey Mouse and Pete's violence was in Steamboat Willie? Or hell, Tom and Jerry years later? This kind of takes that and makes it its own.
If that's the case, I criticize this game for not doing more with its style in regards to its gameplay. Running and gunning is all well and fun in a game where its visual style doesn't take the limelight, but in Cuphead, this feels bizarre and doesn't gel as well as you said it did, Gerad. In fact, this game should have concerned itself with 4x4 planks of wood, slapstick cartoony violence, and shenanigans rather than just long-range shooting with fingers.
Noted, Mecha. It doesn't stop the game from being fun, however. There are two styles of level. The rather accessible run and gun stage, where the goal is to make it to the end gathering as many large coins as possible, or boss stages, where you battle a bizarre and animated creature for the contract to their soul. The game primarily concerns itself with these boss stages, and you could even call it a boss rush game.
The boss fights remind me very much of Wario Land's boss fights from the Shake dimension. They are hand-drawn, well animated, and as difficult to clean up as dried porridge from a saucepan.
How do you know? You can't even clean.
I can dream, Gerad.
No, you can't.
Well, I looked up YouTube videos on it, so there.
The boss fights themselves are very imaginative, and I found myself enjoying how crazy they were, with the boss characters themselves often stylizing themselves on many old characters of past animation. For example, look at this crazy biatch. It's Betty Boop after she finally lost it and resorted to nitrous oxide to get her kicks.
No wonder she's such an airhead here.
She's also even tougher than the aforementioned classic bully kicking you in the nads with football boots. For you see, the boss fights, whilst visually pleasing at first and whimsical in nature, are definitely difficult. So much so, I found myself often ripping my fur out just to get past what I thought was the last stage of the boss, only to then have another even more difficult stage to contend with.
Trust me, I had to watch Gerad fight a dragon for 4 hours straight and not beat it. It was enough to drive anyone insane.
Whilst this may appeal to long-time schmuck shooters, bullet hell players and run and gun gamers, I found it frustrating after such a long time of doing the same stuff over and over again, only to die at the last stretch.
There's your problem. You were doing the same stuff over and over again.
So whilst the bosses are appealing at first, they kind of lose their charm when you're forced to face it again and again just to try and beat it, which is a shame, although they do change up some of their attacks and patterns with each play, just to keep everything fresh. Creators Chad and Gerad were evidently aware of the difficulty, directing part-time animator Jake Clark into changing things up a bit to avoid repetition.
However, it is not enough. The game is excruciatingly repetitive. It becomes very samey after any prolonged period of play, the frustration levels evidently exceeding violent inhibitions. I watched as Gerad became like the cartoon character he was playing, violent and unhinged.
It wasn't pretty. Still, there isn't necessarily a linear way to beat these bosses, and the game gives you a world map to look around and open up everything so you can tackle things in whichever order you want, until proceeding to the next area. You need to tackle all 5 bosses in each area before being able to proceed, and you have to tackle them on the standard difficulty too. None of this easy mode malarkey to help you progress.
This game is masochistic, like me.
Or like drinking a scaldingly hot cup of Britain's favourite hot beverage. Tea!
Actually, according to the Daily Express and several other newspapers, Britain's new favorite hot drink is coffee.
Blasphemy.
There are plenty of coffee places, but very few tea houses. Britain has become mini America.
Well, sauce.
Besides, Gerad, you know not of what lies deep within the head of Cuphead.
True. What I do know, however, is that the game controls well and does reward you for your efforts. Every so now and again, you'll encounter Pork Rind and his old-timey caravan of suspicious trinkets. One can grant you a smoke bomb when you dash, another can reward you with a slowly filling special meter, and another with an extra hit point.
Given that you only have 3 hit points at the game start, an additional hit point is evidently sought after. After all, there is no way to heal yourself during the levels. 3 strikes and you're out.
Of course, you'll need the cash first, meaning those run and gun platformery levels are necessary in grabbing coins for currency. That's really their entire purpose, and well worth doing. In fact, if I'll be honest, I kind of preferred the run and gun levels to many of the bosses. Whilst the bosses are difficult but manageable at first, they get ridiculous later on, and often take many hours to even beat. It's a game of failing, failing again, failing some more, then eventually doing it. If you're into that, then great! But it wore on me after the second world, really.
From Betty Boop, playing monster more like. Still, it looked like you enjoyed the plane sections, using your special to turn into a bomb and blow up her astral-changing face.
The game does try to provide some different gameplay here and there, but I actually don't feel it's quite enough to stave off its repetition. Those plane sections are actually pretty fun, but are essentially run and gun boss fights, let's be honest.
Often there's far too much on screen happening at once, causing Gerad to flip out and get hit whilst he's concentrating on a different obstacle. It's like watching him attempt higher difficulty sections on Dance Dance Revolution.
You should see the final boss. Seriously.
Nothing is unbeatable. You will find yourself trying it again, I am certain of that.
In addition to the 2 main level types, there are sort of bonus levels that break up the tedium by testing your, you guessed it, precise reaction timed skills. To be honest, they're welcome. These take the form of mausoleum levels, in which your main attack is pressing the jump button just as you land on enemies. These enemies are ghosts. By deflecting ghosts from cryptic treasures, you're rewarded with new special moves. These special attacks can be changed in the equipment menu, ranging from invulnerability to massive laser beams from Cuphead's head.
So that's what's inside Milkshake.
Or something even more white and gruesome.
You filthy furry.
Let's move on. So, you can build up a special meter by constantly shooting enemies or the boss character. This builds up over the course of 5 cards in the bottom left of the screen. Should you attempt to fire your special attack before then, you'll shoot something less powerful than if you wait for all cards to be revealed, but it is often worth tactically doing so in order to speed up certain parts of the boss fight you're on, so you can use your bigger special attack during the most difficult section instead.
It beats the 8-way direction you can fire in. I was rather hoping something like the right analog stick can be used to bust out firing in all directions when used with a controller, but it seems I was far too hopeful.
Moving on to more positive things, the soundtrack is of similar 30s era jazz, which I frickin' love. So while some tracks resemble more of a Wurlitzer-style theatre backdrop, others are bombastic and worth jiving to, tying up the overall package into one neat part of the 1930s in video game form.
Is that why you are playing along with your blasted trumpet?
I like all forms of jazz, swing and big brass band sounds. Is it any wonder I play the trumpet?
No, it is worth wondering why you continued with this game so far in, though. You look like you are going to blow a blood vessel on numerous occasions.
Because it's addictive. You find yourself frustrated and a tearful heap on the floor, your controller at the screen, only to then try again after sipping some tea or something.
Or coffee.
Yeah, or that. It makes Cuphead worthwhile when you finally beat a boss you thought was impossible, and with a second player, a lot of fun can be had.
Wait, you can have 2 players? If this game was couch co-op, why wasn't I invited?
So anyway, Cuphead is a rewarding game for the first few hours, but tires quite quickly in my humble opinion. There's a clear market out there for run and gun games, and this is probably for you. Well worth picking up, even if you may not stick with it until its bitter end.
Closing.exe of Cuphead.
How is it that you don't like any indie games, Mecha? Why are you always the pessimist?
It is my job to be a pessimist, to take a dump on the lives of society.
Would you like the game any better if it had an easy mode?
It has one. You just don't gain any benefit from beating the bosses with it. It doesn't even feature the whole boss fight, making it a failure to practice the boss and a failure in progression.
I know what will cheer you up.
What?
My trumpet!
No!